Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, March 12th, 2024, and we're here for a Public Works meeting. We'll start off with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Robert? Here. Pettigrew? Lehman?
Here.
Ham?
Here.
Roseman?
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. Next up is the adoption of the agenda. Motion by Roseland, second by Ham. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. General public comment period now. Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and close that. We're going to move on to consent items 1 through 15. The chair is going to pull item 2 because we have a presentation today. So I'll entertain a motion for the remainder unless someone would like to pull something else. Motion to approve everything but 2. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 2, acknowledge Board of Equalization presentation. We have Mr. Shannon Rittenberger.
Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to come here. I was asked to come talk about the local Board of Equalization, so I've got maybe 5 or 10 minutes worth of comments. You should have a copy of a brochure that the Department of Revenue prepared for both local and county Board of Equalization. It's a good brochure, explains the whole process and the state law. I'll just maybe expand on that a little bit. As an introduction again, my name is Shannon Rittenberger. I am the Pennington County Director of Equalization. For the people that don't know me, I've been doing this job in Pennington County and previously in Butte County for about 23 years now. The core of my office is 15 appraisers. We are responsible for appraising property for property tax purposes. We have other staff as well, but the core are those 15 appraisers. The law requires that I appraise property at full market value, and then that I mail out an assessment notice to every property owner by March 1st of every year, alerting the property owner of what property we have assessed in their name and the value of it. We started mailing those on the 27th this year. Our local real estate market continues to increase, although not as much as what we've seen over the last few years. So it's no surprise that assessment notices this year have a bigger number than they did last year. Our market continues to grow. Please remember that I'm not responsible for that. I didn't cause that. If I were, I wouldn't have to have this job. Assessments have increased an overall countywide about 4.1%, and that's gross average overall. But because our real estate market, any real estate market, is dependent on location, we see the changes in assessments vary by location. Across neighborhoods in Rapid City, it's anywhere from 3% to a high of about 8% across Rapid City. But if we go west of Rapid and further west, we see increases up to 35% as we go west. And that's just a response to our level of assessment last year and what our real estate market has done. The appeal process that you are a part of is established in state law. That brochure does a good job of explaining it. The law requires that if a property owner wishes to appeal, that they provide written notice of that appeal by the deadline this Thursday. It's always a Thursday. It's this Thursday this year. We will probably, the law requires it to be postmarked by Thursday, so we'll probably receive some of those appeals yet Monday or Tuesday in the mail. My office or your office. The law also specifies that you as a local board has to meet Monday and adjourn by Friday. Those deadlines and that meeting time are all established in state law. The law requires that notice of an appeal be made to the city finance office, but most people that appeal come to our office. Many of them come to our office before they even write that formal appeal, because they can ask us questions and we can go over the property with them. We work very closely with Heidi to make sure that she is aware of everybody that comes to our office with an appeal. We forward that on to her. She does the same for those that come to her office. We do everything we can to make contact with the property owner. We will meet with them if we can. We'll listen to their concern. We'll offer to look at the property. We'll verify that the data is right, and we'll review recent comparable sales data with them. If we find that we are missing something and there is a valid reason to change the assessment, we will notify you as the local board of a recommendation to change that assessment to what number we think it should be. If we find that the assessment is valid and there's no reason to change, we still make that recommendation to you. You will get all of those from my office. We go through Heidi for that. The property owner is aware of the recommendation that we make. If the property owner wishes to not appear before the board because they know what recommendation we're going to make, they don't have to. You still have to act on their appeal. You'll act on all the appeals whether they show or not. Most of the people that appeal don't appear before your board. It's their choice to do that or not. We don't suggest that they not. It's a public meeting anybody could come to, and we suggest that they go. If a property owner is unhappy with our recommendation and they want to appear before the board, they certainly will, and they'll make an argument to whatever they want. When the board makes a decision, if the property owner is unhappy with that decision, the property owner has the right to appeal to the county board and then on further if they wish. So this could be the first step in the process, or it could be the end if the property owner is happy with the decision of the board. The law describes the responsibilities of the board this way: to ascertain whether all taxable property in the respective township or municipality has been properly placed upon the assessment roll and has been duly valued by the Director of Equalization. So I see that as three responsibilities you have. One, to make sure all property is on the tax roll. If you think we've missed something, please tell us. We think we've got it all, but your responsibility is to make sure that we do. To make sure that all of it is assessed equally, and equally as all property at market value, not all property at the same dollar amount. And then the third responsibility, to make sure all property is valued accurately. My office uses mass appraisal procedures to appraise all of the property in the county every year. And we do groups of properties by neighborhood at once. We use valuation models at the heart of that process. Those valuation models and that whole process ensures that we value property consistently and equally, because all property is valued using the same model. I've seen the local board, every local board, struggle sometimes attempting to appraise property when a property owner appears before them. I want to suggest that you don't have enough knowledge of the property that's being appealed, of the market data that applies to that property, sufficiently to appraise it in the 10 minutes time that you have at that meeting. Please consider the knowledge and experience that my staff has, the time that they've spent with the property owner on the property, and looking at the market information. In the absence of something we didn't know before, some property detail, which my office will make a recommendation to you if necessary, any action of this board could create an inequity with that property and the neighboring properties surrounding it. So please, listen, of course, listen to the property owner. This is their time to tell you what they think, but don't feel that you have to recreate the process in that 10 minutes time. That's what I have. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Shannon. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to acknowledge. Motion by Roberts, second by Ham. All in favor? And it passes.
Again, thanks for the opportunity to come here.
Of course.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Shannon. Non-consent item 16, we have another presentation from Western Dakota Regional Water System. And I don't know the presenters. If you could introduce yourself as you come up, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Cheryl Chapman, Executive Director of Western Dakota Regional Water System. And with me today is our Operations Manager, Katie LeClaire. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Before giving you some background on the project and our progress, I want to say thank you, not only for the contributions and support that the city has made financially, but also with your staff support, and in particular, your Public Works Director, Dale Tech, who has previously served as president of the board and now as secretary treasurer. And without his help and all of our dedicated board members, we would not be as far along with this project as we are today. So thank you for that. This particular project got started when the governmental entity known as West Dakota Water Development District was getting ready to renew a future use water permit on the Missouri River, which would bring 10,000 acre-feet a year to western South Dakota. The city of Rapid City also holds a future use water permit in the amount of 28,800 acre-feet per year. And as the West Dakota folks were getting ready to renew their permit, they asked the question of whether or not it was needed, and turned to the South Dakota Mines to answer that question. They came back in late 2019 and said, yes, you should renew that permit, and also get to work on trying to find a way to get the water out here, because there's difficulty in meeting the demand during drought conditions. The particular graph that is on the screen, and I believe you have as well, was initially prepared as part of that report. So you'll see that, for example, the dashed black line is the demand that was projected in 2019. The solid line were actual numbers. The horizontal lines and colors represent the amount of water available in western Pennington County. The very top blue one is when we're having a very wet year. Average precipitation is the green line, but it was the red line that caught everybody's attention back in 2019. If you look at the year along the bottom axis, the year 2020 actually shows that the demand exceeded the amount of water available were we to be in drought that year. And so that's what really initiated our work and our discussions to take a hard look at this and talk to folks throughout western South Dakota as to whether they would be interested in learning more and working together to address this. I would add, however, that the South Dakota Mines updated their study late last summer. And those are the lines where you see 1 and 2 and 3% growth. And the shaded gray area there is the demand that is now projected, much higher demand sooner than what was initially estimated by the School of Mines report. And while during extreme drought, we know that regardless of projections, we're faced with shortages. As we look at conditions, say, in between average precipitation and drought, that we have shortages at a much earlier time than was initially projected. For example, if we were halfway in between average and drought, there would be shortages with a 2% growth as early as the year 2040. All to say, we have always had and continue to have a sense of urgency in moving out smartly in addressing this topic. And our work has resulted in the development of a feasibility study on how we would bring water as another source of water to our area from the Missouri River. One of the items that we keep a close eye on, obviously, is the drought patterns. And that was a key driver on that graph that we just took a look at. And so just to give you a sense, and this is publicly available, we are already beginning to see signs of drought in western South Dakota this year. Oftentimes we get a question, well, is there enough water in the Missouri River? And it's a fair question because oftentimes we hear about shortage of water on the Colorado River or other parts of the west and southwest. But we've taken a look at the numbers under very dry conditions, the driest on record, and have learned that if all of western South Dakota used Missouri River, it would still only take, under those very dry conditions, a tablespoon of water for every gallon of water going down the river. There's a lot of water there. And not that that gives us cause to be careless about our use of water. We very much endorse conservation measures. We want to show this particular example to say, yes, there is plenty of water in the Missouri River to address a project such as ours, bringing water to western South Dakota. A feasibility study of this magnitude is estimated at about $13 million, and wanted to give you a snapshot of how we're addressing that cost. Back in 2022, the legislature passed a bill to allocate $600 million of American Rescue Plan Act dollars that were received by the state of South Dakota. We received $8 million for our plan, which was a 100% grant. The following year, we also received $1 million out of a state water program. That particular grant, that $1 million, requires a match, however, and so we raised over $300,000 from communities like Rapid City to other rural water systems, and our contributions ranged from $1,000 to $100,000. Just this year, there was more funding available in the legislative session. A bill was passed for another $1 million of state funding. Again, we have to raise matching funds for that. But there was also a bill to allocate the remaining ARPA money to water and wastewater projects. And our request, which will go through the Department of Ag and Natural Resources and the Board of Water and Natural Resources, is between $2 and $3 million, and are still working on that. We are in the process of raising local match money, and to date, we are at $81,000. And so we know the cost of the feasibility study and have a plan to move forward to get that funded. We are also working with our congressional delegation and getting authorization and some appropriations for the Bureau of Reclamation to work with us on doing the feasibility study. Ultimately, we know that the federal government will be involved and help supply funding for a project of this magnitude. As an example, if you're familiar with eastern South Dakota, the Lewis and Clark project has used 80% of its funding from the federal government. Just, it's an eye test actually, but I wanted to say to date, we've spent $2 million of our grant funds and local match. And with the stage of work we are in the feasibility study, those funds will increase significantly going forward. One of the key activities of our feasibility study is to understand who needs how much water where. And we call that our canvassing effort talking to large and small communities alike throughout western South Dakota. No hard boundary of service area has been defined. We are encouraging everybody to come to the table and talk with us. And as data starts to come in and we understand better as to where the need is, we'll be able to do those boundaries. I did want to show this in particular because you see so many blue dots. Those are water systems in the Black Hills area. One of the things we've learned is within 5 counties alone, there are over 350 separate water systems. So unlike East River, if you will, where you have a handful of major rural water systems, we have many separate water systems that we're working with to try and find a way to effectively and efficiently help serve them with backup supplies. We are also partnering with the U.S. Geological Survey in better understanding water use trends and water availability throughout the Black Hills. And so this is a combination of taking a look at surface water and groundwater. And of course, our aquifers and watersheds don't follow state lines. So we're including parts of Wyoming where the topography demands that we take a look at what's there. Since joining Western Dakota Regional Water System, you have become one of 29 members who have signed up to be part of this, with new members joining all of the time. We have a nonprofit corporation doing this work, and the members who are class 1 and 2 are those members who are delivering water to customers. Associate members and supporting individuals are important members as well, but do not vote in our business processes. As a member, of course, all participating in the annual meeting, participating in making decisions at a business level. You receive newsletters, notices, and recently we've started having board briefings for members. Again, our board is 7 in number, but many more members than that. And so this gives a chance to learn more about what's coming up and what's happening at Western Dakota. We also have initiated technical briefings quarterly. The public is invited, and we have one coming up on April 5th. And Doug Cluck with NOAA is going to talk about drought and other weather predictions. So again, in summary, we say thank you again for the 2022 funding of $100,000 and are requesting $100,000 for 2024 to help us with our match requirements with our state grants. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to acknowledge. Motion by Ham, second by Rosen. All in favor? Next item, 17, request from Western Dakota Regional Water System for funding in the amount of $100,000. Motion to approve by Ham, second by Roseland. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 18, update on EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant and presentation of the draft Community Climate Resiliency Plan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chair, members of the council. My name is Lysanne Zeller. I'm the new Program Development Manager for Sustainability and Stewardship, housed in the Public Works Department. I started just last November and have gotten to work very busily on this EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, or CPRG for short. So I'm here today to give you an update and also brief you on the Community Climate Resiliency Plan. So a lot of acronyms today. I'll do my best to explain everything, but let me know if you have any questions. So just a brief overview of the CPRG program, or Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. It is a planning grant. It's funding from the EPA through the Inflation Reduction Act to develop plans for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and other air pollution. This is funding that was available to all 50 states in 2023. And if the states declined the $3 million, then the MSA, or the Metropolitan Statistical Areas, then became eligible for the funding in the amount of $1 million. So Rapid City applied for and was awarded that funding in 2023. We're the only MSA in South Dakota to accept that funding. The grant does cover all of the planning activities associated with the grant deliverables, as well as supplies, portion of my salary, some of the grants division staff salary, some subawards, support costs, et cetera. So it's been a good deal for us, to say the least. In August of 2023, an RFP was put out to hire a consultant for this work. Luckily, we got several proposals and selected Sustainability Solutions Group, or SSG. And kudos to Jamie and her staff for getting that RFP out right away, because we were competing with 46 other states and several MSAs across the U.S. For consultants. So this being the first time that Rapid City's done this kind of work, we definitely needed consultant help to do that. The grant period is from 2023 to 2027, and there's 4 main deliverables due in that time frame. So you might be wondering, why are we doing this? Well, it's a good opportunity to learn about our community and be good stewards of natural resources. I definitely want to thank our little internal working group here at the city. We have Jamie Tennis and Katie Pavel with the Grants Division, and then Morgan Twombly, who's the new environmental planner in community development. We've been working on this all together. So this was an optional grant, just to make you aware. We're not being held to any requirements other than we have to produce these 4 deliverables, and they have the blue dates on that timeline. So March 1st, 2024, we had to provide a greenhouse gas inventory and what's called a Priority Climate Action Plan, or PCAP, to the EPA. We've submitted a draft, and that's what I'm going to be talking about a little bit today. We have a comprehensive climate action plan due in 2025. That's a longer-term plan with more analysis. It will also have a lot more opportunity for input from the public as well as yourselves in developing that plan. And then later in 2027, there's a status report due. But in the middle of all this, on the bottom in green, is the April 1st date in 2024. And so the planning grant that we received, the $1 million, is just for planning activities. But the EPA now has funding to implement actions that were identified during that planning process. So that's also what I'll be talking about a little bit today. So just to give you a quick rundown on the greenhouse gas inventory for Rapid City, this shows the breakdown of our emission sources in the community. You can see there the bar charts. So our electricity, which is primarily generated from fossil fuels, makes up about half of our greenhouse gas emissions in Rapid City. Mobile combustion, so that's vehicles, driving, gas consumption, that makes up about a quarter of our greenhouse gas emissions. So greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. There are others, but those are the 3 big ones, and then they all get normalized into what's called carbon dioxide equivalents, or CO2e. And for Rapid City, our consultant helped us tally up all these greenhouse gas emissions, and then you divide those by your population, and our per capita greenhouse gas emissions for Rapid City comes out at almost 20. This is above average, and not in a good way. The U.S. average for per capita greenhouse gas emissions is around 16 or 17. In countries like France, it's around 5, and the global average is around 4. So in the U.S., we have very high greenhouse gas emissions, particularly high here in South Dakota because of our electricity source, as well as the fact that we all drive everywhere to go anywhere. So we're such a rural area. All right, so the greenhouse gas inventory was one of those first deliverables due to the EPA, and there's a lot more on that inventory, if you're interested, included in this plan here. So the Priority Climate Action Plan that was due to the EPA, we've titled ours a Community Climate Resiliency Plan. And that's because it's really a plan for the community, and it's looking forward at how do we mitigate the effects of climate change. And it's not just a City of Rapid City plan, it's a community plan. So this plan that had the March 1st deadline, it was a very high level look at our greenhouse gases, what are some actions that we can take right away to reduce those. And we did this all in just a couple of months. We talked to a lot of different city staff, reviewed other plans. We also had a task force that helped us, and that was made up of representatives from various city departments, organizations, businesses, the school district, utilities, so on and so forth. So we had some help in developing this plan, getting some ideas for how we can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. One of the benefits of reducing greenhouse gas emissions is that when you do that, you also tend to produce what they call co-benefits in the community. So you typically improve air quality, or maybe you have some energy cost savings that go along with that. So that was part of our focus, is how can we look at measures that will also benefit our community in other ways. The draft plan was submitted to the EPA by the March 1st deadline to keep in good standing with the EPA, but it was submitted as just a draft. The next step will be for you as council to acknowledge that plan, and that's scheduled for March 18th. So pending your acknowledgement, we would then submit our final version to the EPA. In the future, the EPA will provide us feedback on our plan, but we also begin work on the next plan that's due in 2025. At the bottom of the plan cover there on the right, you'll see that there's a web link. This has been posted on the city's website along with the greenhouse gas inventory for anyone that's curious. So what were the measures or ideas that were identified for reducing greenhouse gas emissions in our community? As I mentioned, we talked to a lot of staff, we reviewed a lot of plans, we looked at what was going on in our community and came up with these 7 general themes focused around reducing our emissions by improving energy efficiency in some of our buildings, looking at possible renewable energy projects either within the city, and we have got a project also at the School of Mines. Some of these are as simple as planting trees in our greenway, creating more shade and absorbing more carbon, as well as expanding our greenway, adding on to the bike paths so people can bike and walk easier through our community. So a lot of options. We came up with a lot of really good ideas, and certainly a lot of opportunity there. However, just because they're in our plan does not mean that we're being mandated by the EPA to do any of these. They are just ideas, a plan for our community. However, the EPA, as I mentioned, that grant opportunity is providing an opportunity to turn these into action. So any of the measures that were identified in the plan due March 1st, we now have the opportunity to apply for grant funding for, and that application is due April 1st. So a quick overview of that. For the implementation grant, across the U.S., there's $4.3 billion available in funding. The minimum grant award is $2 million. The maximum is $500 million, and there's no local funding match requirement. As I mentioned, any of the measures or actions that we want to apply for funding for had to be in that draft plan due March 1st. The grant application itself is due April 1st, and the EPA anticipates to make funding awards this fall, and then there's a 5-year time frame for implementation. The EPA, it's pretty open-ended as long as you're reducing greenhouse gas emissions for the projects that you apply for, but they are looking for significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. They want projects to have a substantial community benefit. Those are those co-benefits I talked about. They want projects to be transformative and scalable. And they also have some criteria for prioritizing low-income and disadvantaged communities, which the EPA has a definition for, and we have several of those in Rapid City. So we've come up with a short list of project ideas, looking at some citywide energy efficiency and LED lighting upgrades, possible renewable energy generation pilot projects, as well as partnering with the Rapid City School District to do some energy efficiency improvements at their schools. And as I mentioned earlier, a solar or geothermal project over at South Dakota Mines. So even our short list came up to $40 million tentatively. We're still refining that budget, but a large dollar amount. As I mentioned earlier, we were the only metropolitan statistical area to accept this funding in South Dakota. That also makes us the only entity eligible to apply for this grant in South Dakota. So hopefully that increases our odds. On this last slide here, I outlined my next steps. However, you have some next steps, and that includes acknowledging the Community Climate Resiliency Plan at your City Council meeting on Monday night. That will be on the agenda for your consideration, as well as approval of the implementation grant application due April 1st. So both of those will be on the City Council agenda Monday night. My next steps will be helping with that grant application and then starting work on that next climate plan due in 2025. So with that, I will just thank you and be available to answer any questions. This has been really exciting to work on this for the first time in our community's history. Many communities do this work, particularly big cities, do greenhouse gas inventorying, have climate plans. So it's really exciting to be doing this work and learning so much about our community. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Liz Ann. Mr. Roseland?
Lizanne, I want to thank you for all the work you've done on this project. I know Jamie, city staff, and many others have been in your group working very diligently on getting this thing passed. And I appreciate that. I want to let you know that I do appreciate that. I know Sustainability Committee's been very much involved also. So I'm looking forward to what will happen in the future, and hopefully all that we are dreaming of and are preparing for will come to fruition. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Any other questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to acknowledge. Motion by Roberts, second by Roseland. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Motion to adjourn by Roberts, second by Ham. All in favor? And it passes. We're adjourned. Thank you.